So for today, we are on mute automatically, and we will ask you to put your comments and questions in the chat. I would first like to start by greeting you from IDI. We're very pleased to have so many of you on this journey to explore innovative science going far. The last 9 months have been a very strange and challenging time for all of us. Through these challenging times, we've seen many people and organizations display flexibility, agility, and resilience. In creating the IDI Sci Innovations Marketplace, we wanted to provide a platform for SCIs and partners from the Sci community to share the innovations that they've tried out so that we might learn from each other. We wanted to provide a platform for SCIs and stakeholders to reflect on innovations that help SCIs in staying relevant in the VUCA world and in delivering value for the benefit of all. We hope that the stories which we share here will inspire us as individuals and organisations to think about innovation and try new things in our local context. No innovation is small or insignificant, and every SCI matters in this journey. Today, we're lucky enough that SCI Costa Rica is hosting a webinar for us on rethinking the way we audit, where they will share their experience in agile audit. So I will be handing over to our speakers, our facilitators for the session, Carolina and Alex, and their goal is to talk a bit about agility in audit and the approach from SCI Costa Rica. So Carolina and Alex, I hand the floor to you.
Thank you, Jade, and many thanks to IDI for having us today. And well, of course, hello everyone. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. We hope you get valuable pieces of information that would be useful in your auditing process, or maybe at least to trigger some curiosity of topics that might be of your interest. Next, please. Okay, so a little bit about our journey on the Agile approach. First, I would like to tell you a little bit about what we've done with this approach. When the pandemic started, Costa Rica, as many other countries in the world, went under a lockdown. And we didn't have and still don't have enough hospital capacity. And those conditions were added to our fiscal deficit situation. And in the middle of this, there were some questions around our heads as SAIs. How to stay relevant for our stakeholders, how to add value under emergency circumstances, and how to be timely in delivering results that are urgent, now more than ever. So by that time, we already had a notion about agility and Scrum, so we decided to give it a try. We really needed to do something different. So our conviction was to give a different response to a different situation. So by April 2020, my colleague Alex, who is here today, myself and a team of auditors, with the support from our manager and from our AG, Mrs. Marta Costa, we made a prototype of guidelines and launched them to the audit division. And that's how the journey started. At this moment, we have 10 Agile audits in process, and 4 of them are almost finished. So the experience we have collected is what this presentation is all about. Next, please. Well, but before we get into business, we would like to make some icebreaker questions with the help of the technology that we've been provided, and also Katerina that is going to help us with some interesting questions, at least so interesting for us. So I think at the bottom of your screen, you'll be seeing the first question, that is, what continent are you from? because we would like to know a bit about the audience. I think in the list of participants, we can make ourselves an idea, but we would really like to get your answers. So, Katerina, are we having the first question? I see people from Hungary, Poland, Romania, Indonesia. Yvonne says, hello from the Caribbean. Okay, there it goes. What continent are you visiting us from? This is kind of a poll, just to know the audience a little bit. We're here in Central America. Please don't ever confuse us with Puerto Rico, which is a beautiful place, but not the same as Costa Rica. We're in Central America. We're, let's say, a little country, but big in hearts. Okay, so hello, Philippines out there. So great. Africa, Nepal. Ooh, most of the people come from Asia. That is so interesting. So we hope we make ourselves understandable because as in your case, I guess English is not our mother tongue. So, okay, that is great. So interesting. Thank you. The second country in order is Europe. That is so interesting. So let's move into the second question. Have your SAI ever conducted agile audits? We would love to know that. In case you have, we can make this exchange of ideas, and if not, we hope to raise your interest in this topic. So let's wait for your answers. Have your SAI ever conducted agile audits? So, yes, in Nepal. Well, that sounds great. We'll love to hear about that. Okay, and I think the people are raised. Oh, most of the people haven't. Okay, so we really hope to help you raise your interest in this topic. And maybe in here we can build a little network in this topic so that we could go together as SAIs, as a community, trying to improve in our skills to conduct agile audit. Okay, so very interesting. Thank you very much. And then we'll move to the third question, which is most of all our curiosity. Which word do you relate the most to agile? We're going to provide you several words. So, but we'll like to know just for a second, which word do you relate the most to agile? So let's wait for the question. Okay, there you go. We have the word speed, we have the word early value, adaptability, and empathy. Okay, flexible. Nadel from Philippines is telling us, I agree. Maybe that word is lacking there. We should have included. But perfect. So, okay, among the ones that we have there, speed, early value, adaptability, empathy. Okay, yeah, it seems like flexible, we just missed it. Yeah, and that is an attribute actually of agility. So let's wait for the answers to come. Okay, adaptability is the most selected, and then speed. Interesting. So from this one, we'll give an answer from our perspective at the end of the presentation. But for sure, I'll keep in mind the thing about the flexibility. And you're very close to our perception on agility. So let's move on. Thank you very much, everyone, for doing this icebreaker with us. Okay, today's agenda. For today, we're going to talk about agility and our sources of inspiration, since there could be several approaches. Secondly, we're going to talk about our experience in terms of methods and products and how we came close, what was like the proxy that we made to the agile approach. Then we are going to share with you some of our learning so far, because I think we're still learning about this. I'll be honest, we are not like the most expert. We come to share an experience, but our experience so far. And also some myths busted, because as auditors, we have a lot of doubts and fears about agility. Mostly when we think that the audit procedure, or sometimes we interpret it or understand it as being so rigid. So at the end, we would open a time for questions. We would just like to receive them written in the chat. I know it is nice to have this exchange of almost face-to-face, like voice to voice, but we want to make sure to first of all understand them all, and then to respond them all, either today or by email. So I hope we reach an agreement. Thank you. Next. So I think it's time to begin. I'll introduce Alex, which is my colleague. He's like the mastermind of these agile approach here in Costa Rica. So I'm pretty much sure you'll enjoy the information that he's going to share with us today. Go ahead, Alex.
Thanks, Caro. Hi, everyone. Next minor, please. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be sharing with you our experience in audit agile in Costa Rica SAI. And I'm sure that we have a lot to learn, and we have just starting, and I am sure that with your questions and your comments, we'll be able to learn much more together. Okay, when we hear the word agility or agile, what is the first thing that comes to our mind? Certainly, many of these words are related to agile methodologies, but in terms of expected results, people associate agility with value, with a better understanding of the needs of the users. And in the most cases, when we have asked about it in different trainings or expositions on these topics, the word that most people associate it will be with agility is speed. Well, we will analyze during this presentation if that hypothesis will be confirmed, or if agility means something else, like you said a few minutes ago, related to early value or adaptability or flexibility. Then go ahead with what is exactly agile. Next, please. Again, when we talk about agility, it is possible to refer to different methodologies. For example, Scrum, Sprint Programming, Kanban, and a lot of more, many more. However, it is important to clarify that in our implementation of agility in our side, rather than implementing a specific methodology, we inspired by elements of agility as a general concept, we have incorporated some change in our process and our products. There is not one on specific methodology, but general concept that change our manner to conduct audit. Okay, okay. I have it. Agility is not a new thing. It's about the 50 years of the century, last century, began this kind of thinking. And the first document, it refers to Agile Manifesto, and Agile Manifesto makes two main types of statements. The first one is related to its values, and the other one is related about its principles. Okay, regarding its values, and it's very important that that uh, that values, because they are direct our thinking when we have to take decisions. Regarding its values, agility make us think, or more precisely, prioritize between two types or relevant elements. Then, in agility, when we have to take decisions, some elements should be considered more important than others. Some of them are particularly challenging for our auditor minds. Let's see. Okay, people and interactions are considered more important than process and tools. This has its origin in the focus on people in agility, which should always be at the center of our who should always be at the center of our priorities to add value, the people. And the next one is software running above exhaustive documentation. Okay, for all of us as auditors who have who are trained to look for evidence, and many times for it to be reliable, we seek it to be documentary. This statement could be very, very difficult because we love documentation. And this has its origin in the context of software development, where it's better than the software works, then it will be well documented but doesn't work. Okay, and that this is because the client needs to see the software working in order to provide better feedback on its alignment with its needs. And thus, in prototypes, in iterations, in timely manner, the client and the developer can agree and build solutions that work. Okay, of course, we are not renouncing the quality of the evidence or our documentation. Like auditors, it will be always necessary, but our concern and our patience should be more focused on finding the correct public problems and their solutions, which is not at all an easy work. It's difficult work. Instead of focus too much on how well reference and document our findings are. It's to see the correct public problems and their solution, the most important thing. The next, collaboration with the client is more relevant than a very formal contractual relationships. Okay, we want to emphasize how we communicate and agree with audit institution. Many times the effectiveness or written communication is not the most suitable for a first contact with the auditee. Even in the context of a pandemic, the idea is to interact face to face, even virtually, with the audited subjects. And perhaps the more important, the last one, response to change over and above following the plan. Wow, we love plans, but we have to understand that in agility, it's more important to be adaptability. the adaptability to respond to change, which for highly structured people, such we as auditors, is a difficult to accomplish that kind of, the value. Okay, next one, please. As I said, similarly, Agile Manifesto summarized 12 principles, which are cited in this slide in case you want to check them back later. But all we need is people aware enough to put aside the idea that a change in a requirement is a problem. It's not a problem, a change. Conversely, conversely, it is an advantage because it helps apps to prepare products more adaptive to user needs, and as well as products that are delivered in a timely manner to add value at an early stage. We need motivate, empower teams, and with the capacity to focus on the most urgent, sensitive, and important issues for citizens. This is the most important about these 12 principles. Next, please. As I have already mentioned, agile principles were first applied in software industry. Um, the classic methodology was called the waterfall approach, and it's considered of a series of strictly sequential tasks in which the requirements were first defined, then analyzed, was made, and it is designed to later carry out the development of the software, and after we need to test and finally implement, and post-evaluation is the final stage. But the idea with agility is to transform the process into mini cycles, in which validation with the client is constant, early, and which allows an early product launch and more aligned with what the user needs. To achieve this, they need prototypes to manage user expectation with a better way. In other words, we have to manage customer expectation based on tangible result. So um, at each iteration, it is necessary to ask whether each increment or preliminary product, that questions. It works. Okay, it works. Yes, it works. Okay, it's better than the previous one. Yes, it's better than the previous one. But it is all we want? No, it's not all we want, but it's better than the previous one. Then, okay, it's good. Go ahead, let's move, continue. Okay, the idea is to add value in each mini cycles. Next, please. Very quickly, about Scrum. If you want to know the principles, elements of Scrum in this slide, you have all the information. Scrum methodology, I basically in Scrum, I basically 3 types of elements: roles, artifacts, and events. That's all. is I think it's not difficult, but difficult is to implement that idea. There are roles for everyone involved, such as the product owner, the Scrum Master, that is the Agile methodology specialist. The Scrum Master is the specialist in the methodology, the team, and the stakeholders. We also have artifacts. Artifacts, which refers to the list of to-do tasks for the entire project, or for the sprint or mini cycle, as well as the increments or preliminary products generated by each sprint. And finally, we have the events. such as the planning session. The daily meeting is famous because we have to stay on our feet by maximum 15 minutes talking about the advance of our project. Then we have the retrospective or learning session for each sprint and the sprint but itself. Okay, these are the principal elements of Scrum. Go ahead, please. Good. Similarly to digital transformation approaches, in the world of audit, agility puts the user or the customer at the center. Uh, but it no longer calls the auditee, but a stakeholder. It's a change of mindset. A culture change is need to change our mentalities to achieve self-management and to stop paradigm of how things have been done so far. Methodology like agility and the use of technology like continuous audit are also needed to facilitate the process. Okay, next please. Or now Carolina is going to talk about how we implement these methodologies and work principles and work values in our site. Go ahead, Caro.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, yeah, now that we went into theory, let's go a little bit into practice from the perspective from the SAI of Costa Rica. Next, please. How is the water? Which water? At first, it is important to say that for many of us auditors who have been in the professional field for many years, there are some things that have become so internalized in us that we no longer feel them or not even realize they are part of our thinking. They become like bias and, well, it becomes difficult for us to think of them in a different way. A traditional way of looking at the audit principles, which are, I mean, absolutely valid and necessary in the audit exercise, makes it sometimes difficult for us to visualize the application of the audit process in different ways. So in this context, when talking about agility, it is highly relevant that without sacrificing any audit principles, we get to think outside the box in order to fulfill the great purposes of audit itself. So please take that as an advice. Next, please. Okay, so to fully understand what it is all about inside Costa Rica, let's look at what it is not about. It is not that for the sake of new tendencies or new methods, we are going to get rid of our procedures, general audit standards and principles. No, 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 nothing of that. And of course, we have to be careful to still provide public value to the stakeholders. So the opposite of that would be a misconception. Next, please. Therefore, it comes in a different order. We understand we want value added. That is our main goal. So as you see that the triangle there, that is our main goal. For that purpose, we should deliver results, deliver a good service, and most of all, make ourselves trustworthy. So in the case of SAIs, that not only that comes from agile. That comes from the capacity to be agile, anticipatory, and implement open audit approaches, which uses the new visions as agility to do things, but always in compliance with the audit principles. So this is the equation that really represents what we mean when talking about agility: public value added, and also the new techniques and tendencies that would lead us to give a better service. Next, please. But well, you wonder how we have done it. First, it is important to say that for each audit that we put into the Agile approach, we still keep the traditional or macro audit process. That is what you see in the upper part of the slide, like the traditional process. Every audit has its own general and specific objectives, the audit scope, the overall planning, execution, and reporting phase. So we still have like the framework, the traditional framework. It is like that because, as you know, we have to give an overall conclusion of the objectives set for the audit at the very end of the process. So this provides what we call the comprehensive vision. Secondly, this is when the change comes, we integrate mini cycles within the overall audit process. So once we are aware about our lines of inquiry, or even while defining them, if we are in front of a very important risk that the auditees, or the now called stakeholders, should address, we conduct mini cycles, either for a single line of inquiry or a single risk, and we issue a little report for each. So that means we conduct one or several mini audits, let's say, within the overall audit process to deliver a timely report to the auditees on issues or topics that cannot wait for the traditional or final report of the audit to be issued. So you might be asking yourselves, how do I comply with the audit principles if I anticipate so much with these reports? Let's call them early reports. Well, each mini cycle has a mini planning, mini execution, and mini communication phase with the main steps that consider these standards. It takes about like 3 weeks for us to conduct a mini cycle in average. And in here, as it is going fast, we do not only rely on written evidence gathered from the auditees, but we are now strengthening the use and giving a little bit of more of a value to other auditing techniques, such as the interview, the observation, some workshops like working with the auditees, constructing or building the results, and of course being very strict with the process of validation to support our results. It is only when we find something that you should have in a paper that we really ask for a written paper. Otherwise, the mini cycle will a little bit take a little bit of more of time. So next, please. At the end of each audit, in our experience so far, we have issued at least 2 reports from mini cycles and a final audit report. That all in about 6 months. That is like the average that we last when conducting an audit. So it also works in terms of productivity, or at least for us, since it takes us, as I said, about 6 months to finish an audit. But with normally a single product at the end. So we're finishing like about with 3 delivery of products. That also helps to have like a closer relationship with the auditees or stakeholders. I mean, I think in a broader way with our stakeholders, but not because it's not only with the auditees, but with other of our clients as well. Like, for example, the Parliament and the public in general. So one of the greatest benefits besides the early delivery of value is that when it comes to the elaboration of the final report, it really becomes easier since the mini cycle report serves as a base to the final content. And I'll explain this later. How is it that the reports work as a base for the final content? And well, it is important to say that the final report includes the issues that remain unattended by the auditees and that were communicated originally in the reports. Also, additional audit findings can be included in case they were found during the overall macro audit process. So I hope I made myself clear with the way we are working with these mini cycles by combining the macro process that gives you like the comprehensive framework and the possibility to conclude on objectives, and then the mini cycles to deliver early value to give alerts about what should be and could be addressed in the moment. Next, please. Next. Thank you. Okay, so no, the first one, please. Yeah. Okay. No, there, that one. Sorry. Okay. As we told you before, it was so important for us to comply with the standards. So we wanted a very structured, agile audit process. And for that purpose, we emit the Agile Audit Standards for SAI Costa Rica. At a glance, the objective is to implement the Agile Audit approach that allows to generate more timely audit results, as I said, using the reports, promoting improvements in the management of the auditees, and generating public value to the stakeholders. Next, please. The Agile approach is applicable to performance audit and compliance audit. So far, our experience has been mostly in compliance audit, I must say. This approach, at least in our experience, has been very suitable for compliance audit. And sometimes performance needs a little bit more of context in order to, provide that early value. It works a little bit different than compliance audit, as you know. So yeah, it has been proven that in compliance audit, it is a little bit more fluent, this agile approach. We have not yet implemented in financial, and we didn't, our standards do not consider that by this moment, because we're still in process to figure out if it really suits this type of audit, but it is very, very likely that it would work as well. Next, please. We have included in our standards our values, because as Alex was saying, it is needed like a change of mindset. So we wanted them to be explicit, to be clearly stated for our audit teams to understand what it was required from them. So the values of this approach are the importance of stakeholder interaction. As I said, it is like an open approach. And to do it or to conduct mini cycles in about 3 weeks, you need to have a lot of exchange with the auditees and other stakeholders. So you need as much interaction as you can. It could not be a desktop approach. Also, the work supported by information technologies. It is not that you need like this very sophisticated software or something. We're actually working with the same software, like all the Google tools that we have. But yeah, we are trying to foster the work with information technologies as much as we can. Also the collaboration with the audited entities, because as I was saying, you need to build results as soon as you can. And then, of course, the openness to change, because this requires a different vision. And that challenges our auditors to change their mindsets and calibrate their brains a little bit to conduct this in a different order. Next, please. We also have stated some principles that are like the overall guidelines during or guides during the audit process. And they are early and continuous delivery of value products, as we said, with the reports from the mini cycles. Change is welcome. This comes from the Agile Manifesto. Empathic approach with the audited entity, of course, because we also need an empathic approach towards our work. So we should be empathic when doing this type of audit. So collaborative work for product construction, focus on the simple and essential, and that is very important. Sometimes you find auditors like going through a lot of procedures and a lot of audit testing and things that are very complex, and that sometimes they don't arrive to a essential result, but a fragmentation of pieces of information. So we want to focus on the simple and essential, what would make a difference to the auditees. Effective face-to-face communication, motivated individuals, that is very important. If you don't have that, you don't have the possibility to conduct these mini cycles. Self-managed teams, you should be careful when selecting the characteristics of your members. You would likely want to have the whole brain represented in this team so that they would manage all the expectations from creativity, from strategy, from being kind enough to approach the administration, or to focus on the procedures and make sure everything is in place. Team focused on continuous improvement based on feedback and hindsight. It is so important, as Alex was saying. So every time that we finish a mini cycle, we try to go back and say what went wrong, what went good, and okay, let's start the new mini cycle with our knowledge acquired from what we did in the last mini cycle. And continuous attention to technical excellence, because as we were saying, we still want to comply with the norms, with the standards, and we still want to be trustworthy. So Agile doesn't mean to deliver less quality. That is the opposite. It is always having a focus on technical excellence. The key to be reliable. So that is a very, very important point in our principles. Next, please. Next, thank you. There is an important mention to fundamental audit principles established in the ESI 100. So we went explicit with considering the audit principles so that we don't like skip them, but make sure those principles are present in our minds when conducting this type of approach. Next. Very important, we have stated all of the roles for every internal staff intervening, including our AG, Marta Costa. She validates every report from a mini cycle that is about to be issued, and the final report as well. So, it is very important that the AG, the head of SAI, would be involved in this and to support the initiative and to believe in it, because it also increases exposure for the SAI. If you go out frequently with reports, you'll be out in the public eye. So you have to make sure that you can manage every of that kind of details. So the support of the AG and the managers, it's crucial. So from the audit team to the press team, the logistic team, the managers and the AG, everyone is involved and has these specific roles that they have to undertake. Next. Okay, for the phases, we refer to the requirements of every audit phase with a highlight on the validation activities. That means we are very, very strict on, for example, discussing the criteria for each mini cycle with the auditees. We always do that. Risk analysis, we still do that. Materiality analysis, we still do that. Like the main audit procedures that guarantee that we are going through the right path to conclude about our objectives is always a concern for us. Next, please. And well, the provision for the issuing of preliminary reports that are like the reports of mini cycles, and the final and general report, as I said many times before, that we have. So next. Okay, you might be wondering what comes as information given in the mini cycle report and what's for the final report. So on the mini cycle reports, they include a mention to the objective of the audit, like the general objective from the micro audit process, and the objective of the report itself. Also a summary of the subject matter and the relevance it has. The relevance it has. And for the findings, we have agreed, as mini cycles take, let's say, 3 weeks, we had agreed on the standards to include the attributes of condition and criteria. And so far, that is the content of the mini cycles report, because the idea is not to make this big, huge report. On average, 5 pages for the most. And maybe 2 findings as much. Then in the case that the auditees don't take any action regarding the issues that have been reported, we take those findings and complement them with the attributes of cause and effect. Like we go a step further. And we include that in the final report along with a recommendation. So with the reports of mini cycles, we are like giving an opportunity to the auditees for themselves to figure out how they would solve the situation. And we, start with the next mini cycle or go with the macro audit process. And we expect they assume the changes during that time. But in case we're about to close the audit and we come to check, okay, auditees or stakeholders, what have you done with this? Have you made any improvement? Yes or not? And if the answer is no, then we complement everything. So we end up by having a finding with condition, criteria, cause and effect, and the recommendation. That in our case, inside Costa Rica, recommendations are binding. They are actually in Spanish not called recommendations because they are mandatory. So we end up with the recommendation because we are in fact convinced they should address the issue. And maybe it was a bit complex. You know, many things could explain why we need to emit a recommendation. But in general, like the philosophy is to deliver early value and to trust a little bit. I think we should be more trustful on the auditees to for them to face the problems with their own solutions. So we're trying to give like a chance for them to try to find solutions, maybe better than the ones we can propose, right? So this is like an effort to trust and an effort to empower people. So sometimes it has worked. In our experience, we have one case in which the auditees improved totally on the matter that was reported on a report of a mini cycle, but some other times they don't. So the reasons could vary, but yeah, you might, or in our experience, we had that great validation that in at least in one case, they fixed it all. So for us, it is a great confirmation that this type of approach could really work. Okay, let's go ahead, please. Well, so when sorry, could we go? Yeah, I just wanted to explain that when it comes to the audit conducted under this agile approach, as we were saying, we have 10. They are all related to the COVID-19 pandemic because we started this as a response to this extraordinary, never ever seen situation for our times. So next, please. With this is a group of audits. I apologize that their names are all in Spanish. The topics include, in general, the procurement process, social assistance, digital platforms, income recovery, financial management, and liquidity, just to give some examples. And as I told you before, we have 4 audits under this approach that are really about to end. And next. I'm sorry, I think we skipped one. Did we skip a slide? The one that is called Our Philosophy? Am I right? I apologize. ¿Podemos ir hacia atrás? ¿Hacia atrás? ¿Hacia atrás? Yeah. No, Our Philosophy. Next, please. Yeah. I'm sorry I skipped that one. This is a great learning, and in the order that we were having in this webinar, I was about to talk about our learnings. So in here, I would like to highlight that from our main learnings is that the perfect is an enemy of the good. We as SAIs are characterized by vocation to excellence. So Almost every time we assume any process as the construction of a vehicle with all its parts and its safety test before entering the highway, right? We don't want to have any accidents. But in this case of the agile approach, we entered the highway literally in a skateboard. And so far, that skateboard has proven to be safe enough to add value to the public. Of course, we hope that skateboard to become the safe vehicle we want sometime. But we have understood that this will come out as a result when time passes by. And as soon as we achieve a greater experience. But the message here is like, don't wait for the perfect. Let's make it good. Let's give it a try. Next, please. Next. Okay, I was talking already about the learnings. Please, next. Okay. We also learned whatever Agile is not. Agile is not easy, is not fast, is not less rigor, is not less value. Instead, it pushes the audit teams a step forward in terms of audit techniques, as I was saying, in terms of communication skills, of patience, of empathy, and capacity to focus on the relevant issues. Next. We also learned that it is a good idea to give a pause on multitask and to concentrate in a single challenging task. I am referring to the mini cycles. When you concentrate in a single topic, like in a single line of inquiry or in a single risk that you are looking at. So yeah, it is important to concentrate in a single challenging task. And yeah, mostly considering that topics for a mini cycle encompasses great complexity and therefore great cognitive efforts. So it's better to stick on a single thing rather than in everything. Always keeping in mind like the overall vision that you must have in audit, but not like going in every direction at the same time, just focusing on something. It also helps to deepen on the topics that you are analyzing, and to go deep is very good in terms of understanding a topic and adding value to the auditee. Next, please. We also understood or learned about the real value of empathy. Without empathy, the contribution of the audit finds a limit. And we really, as auditors, we must understand that. We need to listen. We need to understand others. That's the only way to make constructive contributions for real. So this was like a great learning as well. Okay, then we go with next, please. With the myths busted, and I'm gonna give the mic to Alex. Alex, go ahead.
Okay. We're going to talk about myth busted. Okay. Throughout the year in our SCI, we have realized that we have overcome some myths and paradigms. Let's talk about them for a few minutes. Next, please. We have already have some questions in our chat about this 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 matter. It's about how agility could threat our independence, uh, like a psi. Okay, agility values and principles such as empathy, face-to-face communication, collaborative work, iteration could make us think that we are losing independence as a controller office. But the truth is that it is feasible to maintain a balance between these elements and our objectivity and systematicity. Um, the great purpose of an audit is to facilitate the generation of improvements in the public sector. And the truth is that this sector is complex, is changing, and is challenging, and it's not easy. But the times when the auditor have the answer to all the questions are long gone. We don't have all the answer for all the questions. We need to better listen better our auditees institution, because they have knowledge, they have a lot of information, and we have to learn to listen also citizens. And in this is about another question on the chat. To guarantee our independence as a site, our audit process and products should be conformed to valid and reliable criteria, and an objective analysis of the reality of the audit. If we add to this an early delivery and of value, early delivery of value for the audit entity, our probability of success will be greater. Then we think that we are not losing our independence. Next, please. The other the myth, the threat of overtaking criteria. Okay, over the years, our size, inspired by size, have emphasized the importance of continuous communication with the auditee entities. Perhaps 30 years ago, uh, none of us would have thought of submitting a draft report prior to the completion of an audit. Today, since we began our audits, we communicate the subject with the type and the objective of our audits, and we also validate our criteria. And now, based on the principle of early and continuous delivery of value, in our agile audits, we communicate preliminary reports in order to generate relevant inputs for the improvement of the audit matter. In that sense, the days when the auditors pride himself of surprising audit institution with his findings are long gone. Of course, it is necessary to have a due quality control and supervision and teamwork necessary to that the professional judgment of our audit team supports to make this early delivery of value. And then next, please. Okay, there is a paradigm that the best auditor is the one who finds the largest and most relevant non-compliance, and he who manages to unmask the greatest irregularities. Um, the one at the end of the audit counts a greater number of findings. We could not say that the best judge is the one who has the most case in which he finds the case guilty. The best judge is one who is fair and objective. We know we are not judged, but we do have as a fundamental principle to be objective and systematic, independent of criteria and based on data. So the main objective of the auditor is not to find findings. It is to determine is the most reliable way. In the most reliable way, the reality of public managers. Um, Both compliancy and not compliancy, both lies and gray areas. It has always been said that the best teacher is the one who gets his students to get to do what they have to do when the teacher is not present. The truth is, um, our external control institutions are not present in the majority of decisions made by public managers. We audit institutions, some even every year, but it is impossible to have a very wide audit coverage over scope since our resources are scarce. Um, so the most important thing we have can achieve is learning for our auditors so that they, from the inside out and not by imposition, make the right decision on a daily basis. Our mission is to generate information, knowledge, culture of improvement, principles to facilitate that decision making. In conclusion, in the context of agile audits, the best auditor is the one who, before leaving the auditing institution or before issuing its final report, has achieved that the institution is already taking improvement decisions for the benefit of the public services. Okay, Caro, go ahead.
It was a bit slow. Okay, so here comes like our conclusion on agility. You remember the question we made at the very beginning, which word do you relate the most? Well, in our conclusion, the agile approach is not to be faster. It is about early value delivery. Probably, yeah, in the medium term, to be faster could become part of the result, and of course we hope so. But for the moment, and the most important that we've found in our mission, our SAIs, is the early delivery of value. And well, just to finish, a last question. Should agile approach be extended to every audit process? Let us know what you think, maybe in the chat. Should it be extended? Let us know, please. Do you have any answers? Wow. So it seems like we have convinced you, or so I hope. That is great. Okay, not sure, Priscilla, that's okay. We're also having those doubts. I mean, we have to be careful not to run in speed, like to change what we're doing, everything. There are no recipes in the audit process, but the audit process is like it supports or it admits many things that we could include to make it more fluent and better. So, well, from our part, I think this is it. We hope to have included all the ways to say thank you in the world. I am not very sure. And yes, we could try to answer maybe some of the questions that we might have in here. So
that's
okay.
Great. Thank you, Carolina. I can put some of the questions to you to facilitate our process. I think one question that actually has only just come up, but is implicit in some of the other questions, is do you have any concerns about quality when you're using the Agile approach? Are you still able to follow standards and to produce high quality audits?
Yes, as I was saying before, quality is non-negotiable. We have very strict quality controls and quality assurance as well. We have the two procedures going on in our SAI. As I was saying, everybody has its own role, and everybody is concerned about that quality. And let me tell you something. Quality, what would be the word? Like quality issues were actually found in the report when it came the time to write precise condition and criteria. So we always have like presumed to be very expert in audit, very expert in defining the different attributes. But when it came to really focus, and when you have a 5 pages document, any single like mistake or issue could be seen more evidently. When it came to the time to check on the reports, like we said, wow, like, is this a condition or is this a great criteria? And that came out as something like, it was interesting because it really makes more evident all the possible mistakes or maybe all the possible issues that may arise on quality. So we really are not that concerned because we are more focused on something. It's many eyes on the mini cycle, as it is so critical. You're going out, you're issuing a product, you go to the public, and you're delivering early value. So it's a lot of eyes on the product. So we make sure that it comes out as a very rigorous and fully attending the standards technique. And for the evidence, we, as I was saying, we are trying to give a little bit more of a place to other audit valid techniques. But when we need strong evidence that should only be obtained in a written letter by the officials, of course, we asked for that. We are not going to emit any or to issue any report that has no base on evidence. So it is just like trying to focus. It is not a lack of quality procedures. We don't even skip or miss any important step on the audit process. As I said, for each mini cycle, we have mini planning, mini execution, and we are very rigorous in that. If we weren't doing this, I would say, yes, we are putting in quality into risk, but we make sure that every important attribute or every important step within the audit process is fulfilled. Like I said, risk, materiality, the discussion of the criteria, the obtaining enough evidence, the audit testing, everything is done. It is just that keeping a more close relationship with the auditees and more focused on one single topic, we try to address that in a, let's say, less or short term, and to deliver value earlier. So I think that would be my answer, Jade.
Thank you. I think there's
sorry
been
if I extended so much.
No, it's very useful. It's very interesting. There's been a few questions about examples or topics. Would it be possible for you to tell us a little bit about one of the topics that you have done and how it worked?
Yeah, for example, we've been
obviously without portraying any, confidentialities.
Oh. No, it's okay, because what I'm going to talk about is reports that were issued. So they're public now. The reports are public from the time you issue them. So, for example, one of the topics was about the risky procedures taken by the emergency officials. Like in Costa Rica, we don't have an army, so there's an institution that deals with every situation of emergency, mostly earthquakes and such, those kind of events. But in this case, with this pandemic, themselves also with the health institutions, they joined together to give the response to the pandemic. So they were undertaking, or they were implementing some procedures that in case of emergency, they become very, very risky. Like, for example, procurement processes, or the planning for the whole emergency of the pandemic. So we started to analyze each risky procedure, that of course with several criteria we selected. And one was the planning for the emergency. What are you going to invest in? And considering that we have few resources for that purpose. So we found out that they were delaying the emission of the general attention plan. And that was something very risky. So we made a report on that. And the auditees took the report, and that made kind of some pressure for them. And so they made the improvements. They overcame all the issues they were saying that were the reason why they weren't meeting the plan. And they end up by having the plan in a timely manner. So that's an example of one mini cycle that went really good. Then in the procurement processes, for example, we've been having findings, negative ones, like things that do not comply with the norms and regulations for the procurement process under emergency. You know, under emergency, the controls, they get a little bit more flexible. So we went there, we analyzed that, and yes, we could advise them in a timely manner. You are not fulfilling every of the standards that apply to the procurement process. So that is kind of an alert, and we're still in the process. So in case they don't attend, we'll have to come with the recommendation, and maybe that it doesn't exclude the possibility that if you find irregularities, something really against the law, then you open another process. But at least those are like things that you could address with the Agile projects in relation to COVID-19. But there are many topics that you can try to address with this approach. Like, for example, as I was saying, we have digital platforms. We are analyzing the way they function. Now that digital platforms are very important, so that is something that you would still likely include into a Agile audit approach, maybe in terms of security, in delivery of service, yeah. And also in our case, very important, everything related with the financial issues like income recovery and you see financial management yeah, those are like many, like some examples. I'm sorry, some examples of topics.
That's great, thank you. I think there's been quite a few questions about the resources required. So if you think about using this agile approach, do you need more people than you would normally use? What kind of time resources do you need to be able to deliver like this?
Carol.
Would you like to? Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, I think we have good news about it because we implement Agile Audit, and we didn't have we didn't need more resources than we already have. Uh, we don't need to invest greater investment of resources, and we did it with the same resources. So this type of initiative is absolutely in our hands, especially now we have fiscal problems, and there are many free resources on internet and on formal training about agility, Scrum, and other methodologies, and also all of us can share our experience or our success and even our mistakes. So capitalize our on significant learning, and especially to generate better results from our audit. Then our teams maybe are teams about uh, 2 or 3 auditors in the land, and one supervision and supervisors, and that's it. Maybe the good news is that agile audits is on our hands. I think so.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Great. So one of the other questions that came in actually I think relates back to the things you were saying about stakeholders, about our stakeholders. So a few people have been asking if you would consider agile audit and citizen participation audit or citizen participatory audit together.
Well, we haven't.
You look very how I read the question. I was like, oh, that's really interesting, but I hadn't put them together. So
Actually, well, citizen engagement is something that we've done in the past and we are still doing. In this case, we're having this type of engage in a very, like, what would the word be? Like in a very, maybe, no, like not going that further with them. I mean, just like in an initial stage,
yes,
like in the more in the more the shy way, like the initial way, like the most humilde. Let's say, I'm sorry for like
I
that
think
I
I
don't
can
have the word.
Humble. Humble.
Yeah, but the
yeah.
incipient does incipient exist? Like the initial?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, the incipient way, maybe in interviews, because we've had experience in working, engaging citizens, even from vulnerable communities, when we are addressing a certain topic and bringing them to the office and building results even with citizens. In this case, we haven't had that experience yet, but I think it's something to come. I mean, I think we were clear enough that we are still learning. It is not like a process that we feel that we are finished or that we are done with it. As with the regular audit, I think we always learn in each and every audit that we conduct. But in this case, we're still learning. We're still very curious about the opportunities and challenges that we might have. So we haven't done it yet, but I think it's something that we are going to maybe have the next year, because this year we stick with the topics regarding COVID-19, but we are planning to engage some other audits for the next year that are not related necessarily to the, I mean, now everything is related with the COVID-19, but let's say that we are going to try to bring some other topics that are like more traditional and regular that we get to audit within this approach. And maybe we'll have the opportunity after these first experiences of 10 audits to do something more, to add something extra with stakeholders during the process. I mean, with the stakeholders, we have, of course, a close relationship with the auditee, but from the question, I understand that they are talking about the citizens and talking about other actors that might get involved in the audit process, and we for sure, that's our goal someday.
Excellent, thank you. I think we're coming to the end of our time, although we haven't answered every question, but I think you've given us many things to think about. I find it really interesting because when I first started audit, I was told that my methodology was like my map and that I would get to my goal by following my map. Then I was thinking about when I was first learned to drive and I taped my map to my dashboard so I didn't get lost. And then when I met a roadblock, I was stuck because I couldn't continue in any way. And now we have DPS, so we have this collaborative idea that it makes a new map for us. When we get to the roadblock, somebody's already been around and helped us to find our way. So I think for me, the Agile methodology feels like this idea of a kind of collaborating to make a map that responds to the things that we find, the changes that we find as we go through. And I would really like to thank everybody who has joined, but also particularly Carolina and Alex for the great work that you've shared with us. And I'm sure that you will have more questions coming by email from people. And thank you so much. And one more thing I nearly forgot. I'm supposed to remind you that we have another Sci Innovations event. So our next Sci Innovations event will be on the 20th of January. And it will be from Sci Brazil, who will be sharing their experience with an innovation lab that they've developed there. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your questions. And I think it is important to have a final message about the gradual implementation of agile auditing. Excuse me, because there are a lot of paradigm that we have to overcome. And then thank you very much for the opportunity. And we are in the best disposition to continue working with you and improve our process and product audit process products. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's so nice when we can share these things within the community and help each other to develop further. So thank you, and best wishes to everybody over the coming period. I hope you all stay safe and happy this time.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.